You once wrote, "I'm still contemplating, I'm still competitive, still questioning, I'm still improving, and still pushing. Still me. Just more aware of what's in my hands and what's not." For students navigating ambition and uncertainty at the same time, what does that kind of self-awareness actually look like in practice?
Yeah, that's great, Keegan. So I think from a student standpoint, my two oldest, my oldest one graduated from college from Butler about 2 years ago, and the middle one will be a junior next year. So kind of right in the thick of answering these questions internally. And so I had a big health scare about a year and a half ago. Thought I had cancer and had surgery and so on, and it turned out to not be cancer, which was great, but it gave me a lot of perspective. And I don't know if I know for sure the answer on all that. Kind of like I'd said in that LinkedIn post, I look back now and I don't think I would have gotten to where I am in my career and what that's meant to my family if I hadn't have been just kind of a maniac right out of college and given it everything I got at every moment and just absorbed in everything career-wise. Versus being in a little different position now that I'm 50 and I have the luxury or the ability now to kind of be able to actually say something like that of reprioritizing and so on. So one of the things I kind of like is this idea of work-life blend. Mm-hmm. And so I don't think work-life balance, I don't think exists. I don't think you can really balance anything out there. And so one of the things that's been really helpful to me in my whole career, Keegan, is blending things together. And it kind of fits me too, because I love being efficient when I do things. I love if you talk to my friends, they know, my colleagues here at Gibson, I love 2-for-1s or 3-for-1s. And so for me, that kind of finds its way into if I've got a business trip, can I bring along one of my kids with me? And nowadays, oftentimes I won't even accept going to a conference or something if they don't say that that's okay. Because I'm going to go there and get that done, what I need to do business-wise, and I'm going to share some of that and spend that time and that experience with one of my kids. So kind of getting all the way back to your question there, what does that all look like? I think there's different seasons, and I think if the more you want something big or special in life, I don't think you can just get there by putting in a little bit of effort. I think you got to go all in to get it. And I'm sure as you've got this podcast and other things going, you've started to probably see that too, right? Yeah. The more you can solely dive into something, you're going to get a better outcome. And later on, that all goes well, and it should, you can then, choose your priorities a little differently.
And then that kind of awareness you're talking about, knowing what's in your control and what's not, feels especially important when you're facing uncertainty. But 20 years ago, you took the leap, a pay cut, a cross-country move, and a chance to come back to Indiana. You said the early years were rough and Gibson wasn't exactly thriving, but looking back, what advice would you give to the students who feel that same fear, who don't feel ready for the next step after graduation or for stepping into their first opportunity?
Yeah. I think that's the most amazing part of being like a student or going to graduate soon that gets lost on you. Like there's so much pressure. You feel pressure maybe from your parents or yourself. You put your way through, you got loans, you got all these things going on, and it feels stressful. And yet it's the most amazing time to do anything. Like anything is possible. And you don't typically have kids or a spouse or anything like that. So going out and trying something and swinging big, it's a perfect time to do all those things, because what's the worst that can happen? I mean, like literally, what is the worst that can happen? Like the worst is probably you get fired or you just quit and try something new, but no one will ever ask you about it. No one will really ever remember it. And I think sometimes people are probably a little too careful early on, and you have to just take some of these leaps sometimes. And I also think too that I'm just a big believer in you can kind of bend the world to you and what you want if you approach it that way. Everything's a learning opportunity. Everything's an opportunity to connect with relationships and meet people. And I think sometimes people play it a little too safe and a little too careful on that. Now, that being said, also, thinking about like my own kids and coaching them a little bit, I think sometimes need to have a little more resilience. So you take on that first job, and if you chose the job the right way, and I think the right way is look for a great company. So that's oftentimes maybe it's a really big company with really great processes and structure, because you'll get that experience out of it. Or look for a great boss. So you can actually have a not so great company, but if there's a boss, if you're gonna be working for somebody who cares about you, wants to see you succeed, even if that means outside their organization, that's a big win. And if you get really lucky, you get both of them. Mm-hmm. But if you chose right on the front end, you at least got one of those. Give it enough time though to get the value back out of having a great boss or a great company, and then make your decision and move on from there if you need to.
What's the first mind shift change that students should make when going into that first job?
Just being like open-minded and willing to learn, and appreciating that as much as you have learned and as good as you are, you don't know anything yet, and there's so much that you can get from it. But I think one of the mindset shifts, and I think it's particularly an issue nowadays, is people don't know how to build relationships the way they used to. And I think it comes from typing and shorthand and short phrases, all the time. And those relationships are so key. When I think about some of my first jobs and all that, yes, I learned on the job and I learned some technical knowledge, but it was actually the relationship I built with my boss that propelled me for years to come into the future. Mm-hmm. And so that mindset shift is not forgetting to dig in and build this personal relationship with your boss, your supervisor, whatever. And so some people I think they're looking for mentors, and they don't know how to be a good mentee. Mm-hmm. And so when they get in and get going, and I think they feel like maybe they're putting people off and bothering them and all this. And I find it to be just the opposite. I find like a lot of my peers would love to have young people ask for help. Mm-hmm. And then what I love doing, or what I love knowing, is I love hearing from them in the future that, hey, I know we never worked together, but 2 years ago, you and I did this together. We got together, and today I took this new job, and it actually had something to do with that question you asked me or whatever. Being a good mentee is kind of an art, and I don't think people know how to do that well, but if they do, they'll have this lifetime of this group of people that want to see them, succeed.
What are the characteristics that define a good mentee?
Communication, being confident, being vulnerable too. Mm-hmm. So confident in that, hey, I had a great time getting to know you and all that, and feeling good about themselves. But then also to be vulnerable of, hey, I just ran into a problem here, and wondered if you could help. And then I think making it easy on the mentor. Mm-hmm. So a lot of these mentor types are probably busy, got a lot going on. So sending a text or an email ahead of time that maybe explains the challenge or issue they're having, like, hey, this is something I've gotten myself into. I'm struggling with my boss or my new role. These two people are causing me some grief. I've thought about handling it like this, but I don't know if that's the right direction. Can you help me? And perhaps we could talk. So that makes okay, I know what he or she wants from me. I might even be able to handle it via email, and if not, I can do a call, but I'm already in the mindset and I'm ready to go. Mm-hmm. So that making that part easy, and then closing the loop at the end of the day, just following up and dripping some things, back in of hey, here's how this all worked out for me, good or bad. That's really the way you do it. And then a nice touch too is, I think, just finding reasons to stay in touch. Maybe it's one of those mentors, it's their birthday, or it's once a year at the holidays or something, just to send a quick note of, here's what's going on. I actually still, once a year, probably reach out to 5 or 6 people that have made a difference in my career for me, and just tell them what I'm up to. And it's been 20 years maybe since I've done something with them, but I know I can always call on them still, to this day.
So you said most people were willing to give advice and willing to take on the mentee. How can a student in today's age, being so on social, find someone to give them the time to mentor them?
Yeah, so So you're kind of asking maybe about with everybody being busy, or more so from how do you even find somebody to begin with, the initial connection?
Kind of both, to be honest. Everyone's busy in today's world. I mean, even for this podcast, taking 45 minutes, how can someone reach out and find someone to commit, an hour of their week to teach someone that's young in school?
I think LinkedIn's a great place to go in that. If looking at people's posts, which you found a few of mine here that you've quoted some things I've said. So something that was meaningful. Taking it easy though too, as you get that started up. Not being demanding, but letting somebody know you read it, and make sure it's personal enough they'll know it's not a bot. Talking to them, and keep it non-invasive at first, which is probably through messaging, through LinkedIn messaging or something, or email or whatever, and kind of build that up along the way. I think a lot of young people may not realize this, but I think you have more to offer these mentor types than you think you do. Mm-hmm. And so offering that up, what it is, and it might be like, hey, such and such, I don't know how exactly I can help you, but if you think I can, I want to return the favor to you. And I think you'd find, like in a lot of ways, maybe it's hiring people. You might have friends at U of I or something like that would want to come work. A book I like is called Who, Not How. Mm-hmm. And it's great because it talks about people try to learn a process to go accomplish something or whatever, and they spend all this time trying to figure out the path. Meanwhile, they could just go to a who's already been there and done that and get it done. So, and I've had some younger people I've recommended that to, said, gee, that's great, but the book kind of talks about being reciprocal. What do I have to offer? But it's exactly that. It's like, what do you mean, what do you have to offer? You're college junior, senior, you got like 5 or 6 buddies that, you're good buddies, right? They're the good ones that might be like a potential employee. I mean, do you know of any executives that aren't looking for talent these days? Everybody is. So making some introductions like that, there's a lot of ways you can be helpful.
Once students shift their mindset to think of a growth mindset, how can I provide, how can I add value, and they believe they belong in the professional world, the next big question becomes, what path do I take? And we already kind of talked about this, but most are taught in school to chase the most prestigious job with the highest salary. But you did the opposite. You left a big firm in Phoenix and you took a pay cut and a significant risk to come back to Indiana. What gave you the confidence to make that call? And what are students getting wrong when they chase what looks best on paper early in their careers?
Yeah. Well, my first job out of college, I will tell you that I took the biggest paycheck because I was getting married. So I graduated one weekend, got married the next weekend, had a honeymoon, and then started my job. That being said, though, and so that second one, which was about 2 years after graduation, I did take a big cut, but I never believed that that would be the end of the story, though, mm-hmm. too. And so I'm a big believer in and. Mm-hmm. And so I don't like trade-offs of, well, it's either this or it's that. I like to find ways to combine things, and I'm going to get the job I want, and I'm determined to ultimately make it the one that pays the best, too. Mm-hmm. Now, sometimes those don't happen right out of the gate exactly, or maybe it's the compensation I want, but I'm going to work really hard to turn it into the job I want also. So I think that's like one of those mindset things. It's kind of a limiting belief that, mm-hmm. These either or situations. And I just think if you have the will, you can turn these things into an and. In terms of the confidence there, I believed in myself, mm-hmm. and I also did enough review of the situation to feel like that the skills I had, so I guess part of that would maybe be knowing myself and being honest with myself about what I was good at and not. Like what they needed at Gibson at the time, I was passionate about it and I had the right skill sets to make the fit. And then the rest is a little bit of taking that leap of, because you can spend so much time getting every single detail worked out and everything perfect. And I've kind of have had my whole life a bias for action and just leap into it and go. And the time that I didn't waste figuring out every last thing is more time I could invest in getting it right once I was in it, or realizing I had made a mistake and I need to jump again to something else. And the details have a way of working themselves out, the right way. So I think too, I wish I could say I honed all those skills. I guess I have over the years, but some of it I probably just, that's how I was born, a little bit, that way. And I do always feel for my buddies, my friends who have to think through things a lot more than I do, because I just feel bad for them. Now, that being said, they probably get it right. They make a fewer mistakes along the way, but I make a mistake, I just pivot quickly and move on. So,
well, you did jump right into the role, but then after receiving your first 360 review, one comment read, "Tim still needs to make some headway if he's going to be the next president. He should avoid the perception of favoring the sales staff and strive to have positive relationships with all staff." How did you turn that feedback into growth, and what advice would you give to students learning how to build trust and credibility early in their careers?
Yeah, Keegan, so when I moved back to South Bend in mid-2000s, I was really hard to hear. So they had this 360 feedback system at the time at Gibson. And I actually don't like those systems at all because they allow for anonymous feedback. Yeah. And that doesn't really help anybody, in my opinion. Now, a lot of HR folks and others will think I'm crazy, but feedback is really good, and hard, honest feedback is really important, and people are afraid to give it. But if you don't know who is giving it to you and the context that it comes from, then you just like make up assumptions in your mind and all that. And I needed that. I was well-intentioned. I didn't appreciate then when I was in my 20s, in early 30s, just how quickly, how fast a pace that I ran at. Mm-hmm. And I didn't appreciate that I needed to, I'm blessed with a fast processor. And so I actually think about things more than people believe that I think about them. I actually do some diligence in my head. It just goes really fast. And so that was one of those moments when I needed to take a moment and take a step back and slow down and give people time to process and appreciate more that not everybody is wired exactly like I am, and do that. And the second thing that I had to learn in that, and I couldn't figure it out, is some of the feedback I was getting was around, almost to the point of like, it looked like I didn't care about people and was trampling over people. And some of the other feedback, they were right, 100%. But when it came to like me not liking people or something, I'm like, okay, well, that I know, like I love people and relationships. So something's wrong here. They're getting the wrong perception. And it was my predecessor at Gibson, a guy named Greg Downs, actually kind of helped me figure this out. I'm like, why am I having problems with all of these people in certain areas of the company and not others? And what we figured out is in the area, the business unit I was working in closely, it would be I'd be with one of the service team members driving to the appointment together, and I could be me, and I could ask her about her kids, and I was genuinely curious about that. I wanted to know what's going on in her life, and I was able to build up some, chips there with her, so that then when Mr. Fast-Paced Tim rolled in and needed stuff done, she knew that I did really care about her. We were just moving fast. In the other parts of the company, as I was getting to know everybody, we didn't have those times to get together and connect. So all they saw was the impatient, hustle. Mm-hmm. And so it was, again, a reminder to me, and I changed the way I did things from there on out, is I do so much better when I've had a chance to connect personally with somebody and get to know them a little bit. And if I put a little more time in doing that, they would give me grace to go move really fast because they knew it was for all the right reasons on that. So I really despise those 360 anonymous reviews. It was really rough to get through there. It was painful, but it did help me along the way. But as we progress over the years at Gibson, we still have great mechanisms for feedback, but we just encourage everybody that it's okay. Let's put the Midwest nice stuff aside, and actually kind is honest. So if you really care about somebody, you can be kind when you deliver hard words. Mm-hmm. but they need to hear those things. And if you're trampling and whatever, you need to hear those things. And so we've just got better ways of doing it today.
How do students or recent grads build those personal relationships with their coworkers or peers?
Yeah, and I don't see that happening as much. I've read articles too about how much all these, actually like less happy hours are occurring after work. And I'm not saying alcohol is a good or a bad thing, but less alcohol is being consumed by Gen Zers. And I read this really interesting article recently that said, this guy was saying, I don't think it's that Gen Z is healthier, is making a choice to swear off alcohol. I think it's that there's less happy hours and social time occurring like at work and these other things. So that's part of it. And people are really holed up together. It's like as simple as asking to just go can we grab coffee this morning before work, or can we take a break, or can we take a lap around the parking lot, and show genuine interest in all those things. And it might feel a little awkward, and I think young people probably feel like they're putting somebody out, but they're really not. I mean, that was the hardest thing in the world for me during the pandemic, is I craved that interaction with everybody, and I've learned to appreciate flexible work and everything, and so we're really great about that. But I still miss those human interactions like that. So, I mean, I think it really is that simple of just asking somebody to go do something. One of the things I think that can help with that is it's never a bad idea to frame it around something you're curious about. Of, hey, would you mind? I'd love to grab coffee with you and learn about how you started your career, or how you when you decided to buy your first house, and because I'm thinking about that, or I want to be prepared, I'm in an apartment now. I mean, think of like an interesting thing or two to ask, and that'll get it started, and now you're pals, and check in with them every so often, right? I mean, it's, and then you can get back into texting and things like that with them, but I think it's that simple.
And then once that trust starts to build with that person, there's still the question of influence and leadership. And you've emphasized the importance of leading before you have the title through actions, mindset, and consistency. How can a college student adopt that approach in a setting where they might not have the authority, but they want to make an impact?
Yeah, and I was able to gain influence early on at every one of these roles. And I think the relationships had everything to do with that. So one example of that is my first boss in Indianapolis right out of college. I would tag along with him to all his appointments when he would go visit his clients. And I lived here in Indianapolis. I lived in Meridian Kessler area. He lived up in Carmel, and a lot of times we would go south to like Columbus or Bloomington to see one of his clients. So if I was going to meet up with him to find a convenient place, where would that be? Probably on 465 on the south side, right? That's not what I did. I would get up even earlier and drive up to his house so that I could have the maximum amount of time in the car with him, even though it made my day longer, because I could just ask him all kinds of questions, and it didn't put him out at all. He had to drive that whole time anyway. And I could ask him, and he would take calls while I was there. So he would be on with the corporate folks in Chicago, and I'd hear him talking about an employee situation, and like, hey, Sparky, can't tell anybody about this. But the richness of the experience I got and how he handled all those situations, or when he got off the phone, like, hey, so why did that guy say that to you? Or why did she ask this? And how did you do that? And learning about kids and all that. And then I started trying to do that with others in the office, the other, senior people. And again, I mean, hey, everybody loves being around people for the most part, and having a little buddy along and making it convenient for them. Like, look, I never put them out. I went to them, and it was so easy. And that's the thing, is make it easy on them. So then when things would come up in the office and stuff, I'd listen, I'd wait my turn. I knew how the hierarchy worked, but when there was an opening, then I said what was on my mind, and I asked questions and all that. And I think from that, they started knowing that they could rely on me. And that I was mature, and they could count on me to keep a secret, keep things confidential that should be confidential. And I just was able to start demonstrating all those things.
When someone starts acting like a leader, even without the title, the next step is often about how they lead others. And you transformed Gibson into an employee-owned company, sharing power, credit, and responsibility. Why was that shift so important to you? And what can student leaders learn about sharing ownership and empowering others, even in a small team setting?
Yeah. My second job when I was living out in Phoenix, it was super exciting. It was over the 6-year period. Right as I joined, they were a public company and had a big leverage buyout with Kohlberg, Kravis and Roberts, KK&R, and then went private and then had an IPO about 4 years later. And again, I learned so much, but I still remember being in this group of high performers, and the CEO was, and I get where he was coming from, but he made this big emphasis about the stockholder is our number one focus. Because if we don't take care of our owners and our stockholders, then the rest of this, people, clients, none of it matters. So that is our number one priority. And intellectually, I understood what he was saying, and there's truth in that. But when I looked around the room and I saw these defeated, looks on everybody's faces, like really my whole existence is to make sure that the stockholders matter. So as a younger person in my 20s, to hear that and see that, and it never was lost on me. On the other hand, the exciting part of the IPO was seeing everybody rally around and know what the share price was and that we were accomplishing something together. And a lot of the employees got to participate in the IPO, and that was really cool. And so I thought there has to be this way to combine those two things. So in 2011, I started working on this in about 2008 or 9. So I got named president and the Great Recession happened, and we were in really tough shape at Gibson. I had a bunch of my senior partners, several, that was enough, who owned a big chunk of the company, retired. They wanted bought out. We didn't have buyers. And it was a real problem. And so we had a problem we had to solve, that we didn't have enough buyers for our shares. We had that issue. We had to perpetuate it. Business was bad still from the Great Recession. And one of my friends worked at a company named Crow, big accounting firm, and they had an ESOP practice at the time. And so he was the first one to tell me about this employee stock ownership plan. And ultimately what we found at the time then is that was our best bet. It was it would be kind of like a minority partner in the company, but it was gonna be all of our employees. And they were gonna get gifted ownership out of the whole deal. It was gonna solve for these partners who had retired. And it ended up becoming such a great solution for us, Keegan, because it brought some of that transparency and that rallying point around everything. But it wasn't these outside shareholders we were pleasing. We were the shareholders. And that's super neat. And so fast forwarding to a recent event for us on June 30th is we joined a bigger organization named Unison Risk Advisors. And it's a company that's 70% owned by employees, and 100% of employees have ownership in the company. And our employee owners for all these awesome last 14, 15 years since 2011 when we put the ESOP in place, just got rewarded really, really handsomely in that too. And that just brings me great joy, because we all did this on a team effort. We've grown, 20 years I've been there, we've quadrupled in size. And these people have just done, it's just been a huge team effort. So to see everybody get rewarded for that was really, really fulfilling.
Empowering others is one thing, but getting everyone aligned is another. You guys offered ownership to your employees, but a lot of student projects or teams don't define the culture at all. What's one simple way that you could create clarity and cohesion on a team that might only exist for a semester?
Wow. That's a really good question. Hey, can I ask the interviewer on that? Have you had any luck with that on these sprint teams that get put together?
I've shared the classroom with some killers.
Yeah.
So we're good.
Yeah. I think it's probably communication. And I think a big problem we have. You're a Midwest guy, so am I. Is truly this Midwest nice thing. And our moms teach us very early on: if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it. And so when you get you group for the first time, you got 3 or 4 people, and you don't know each other well, there's this tendency to, well, would you like to go first? No, you go first. And I think without being kind of a jerk about it, to step into these things and lead without needing to be the leader. So somebody to step in immediately and say, hey, here's the deal, right? It looks like we've got the 4 of us for the next 6 weeks. We've got to do this thing. Who would like to be our leader? So in a way, I'm leading, but I'm tossing the ball back of, And somebody might say, yeah, I'd like that role, and then we need this role and that role. And so I think just jumping in and taking charge, but doing it in an inclusive way like that really helps. One of the things I've learned is how important clarity is. And we all assume things. I assume that you know what I'm talking about and you do the same. So capturing it, repeating it back, having like a North Star of 2 or 3 things that are super important, that when we get done with this, what does good look like? So here's the outcome we want. We got 6 weeks to do it, and let's just back into what needs to happen along the way so we don't all last minute things. So some of those things feel like they come kind of naturally anymore, but I think it doesn't take much to put some process and steps in, and I guess, start with the end in mind. What does done right look like? And then back to today and go. Yeah.
Gotcha. 5 more minutes. We're going to go into 3 rapid fire questions, which is one belief about leadership that took you too long to unlearn.
One belief about leadership that took me too long to unlearn. That's a really good question. I think it's about that relationships still matter, and that probably seems strange. I had to unlearn that because I am a relationship person, but sometimes something that comes naturally to you. It's Pat Lencioni has this thing called Working Genius, and talks there's 6 working geniuses personality assessment, and he says in there that whatever your geniuses are, and he thinks everybody has a couple of geniuses and a couple things they don't do well and so on, you probably don't see it as a genius because it just comes naturally to you. So relationships have come naturally to me, but I've watched leaders over the years, they do it once and move on and don't act like it's something that they need to nurture. But if you think about your parents, your siblings, your spouse, whatever, I mean, do you carry on for the holidays over Zoom? 100%. Hey, let's open our presents over Zoom. Let's do all that? No. And so some of these tools and everything that exist are great, but you need to be together in person and be able to share that. I mean, humans were just meant to do that. And I think leaders miss on that. They treat it as a transaction and versus an ongoing perpetual thing.
One book every student should read before graduation.
Atomic Habits, James Clear.
One skill business students are learning in the class that they need.
I think it all is built around communication, relationships, and engagement that way. By the way, one book I think that students should read and everybody should read, which I love, but I worry when I give it to students, I do a little bit, it's called Die with Zero. And it's a great perspective on life about experiences and how that matters the most. I think sometimes young people might take it too literally, too fast, because it kind of says, don't save up all your money till you're dead someday, use it while you're alive and go do great things. So that's the wrong way to interpret it, but I think it's a great way, again, this conservative Midwest lives that we've all had growing up, about save, yes, we should save, but go out and enjoy things, like put your hard work to work for you and go on vacation, do something crazy, go to Europe with your friends, do something like that, and enjoy these awesome moments. But if you couple that with Atomic Habits, then you'll probably have yourself positioned just perfectly to have things to go enjoy and die with zero someday.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time.
You got it.